Hello, I'm Aidan, and this is my game development project. I decided the area in game design I enjoyed the most was environment design, so I wanted to base my rationale on this, lead me to doing a project that I could use for a future career. I wanted to explore an area that I hadn't tried yet, so decided to base my project on hand-painted textures. My idea behind this was I could find out if I enjoyed it, and if not, then I'd know what to focus on in environment design for the future. I had an idea of a seaweed farmer that would brew kelp that he grew around the raft of his house in the middle of the sea so other sailors could stop by for a drink and rest. I wanted to first of all model the environment and put most of my focus into the hand-painted textures, using them to bring the scene to life. This idea didn't work as well as I'd hoped it to, as I realised I didn't enjoy making the hand-painted textures as much as I did making materials in Substance Designer. Once I'd done all the hand-painted textures for my raft, my house, and my barrels, I wanted to add kelp into the water, make the water move, have rocks and a nice landscape behind it. I was going to have a boat, but I didn't manage to get this done due to timing problems. It was a stretch goal, so it was first on the top of my list to drop. My scene is made from several different assets. The modelling is simpler than I would have liked. In the future, I'd take more time, giving more time to concept planning before jumping straight in. I watched lots of tutorials on YouTube. The main one was a series of how to draw hand-painted textures, and the person that makes it is actually Blizzard artist, so I thought this would be a good reference to go from. I made several different types of wood for this. I used wood planks, wood logs, as well as adding details like a door handle or knots in the wood. In the future, I probably wouldn't do this again without putting more thought behind it. I realised I much prefer doing materials in Substance Designer just because it works better with me. Even if the outcome of my overall project wasn't how I wanted it, I'm glad I did this because I now know what I need to do in the future and which area I'm stronger in. So this was a good learning experience for me. I think also I have picked up some painting skills which I could use for smaller things that aren't a main focus. The process behind me making the scene was actually fairly simple. It was making a model, blocking it out, putting it into Unreal and seeing how it looked, and then going back in and finalising what I needed. I'd then unwrap it and put the UVs into Photoshop, making a texture to apply in Unreal again and tweak with colours and normal strength. I realised there's actually much more I could have done. In the future I'd quite like moving parts in my scene, so in this I have water which looks like it's rippling, but it would be nice maybe to have a sign that swayed in the wind, or just so I can add more depth into the scene and make it more interesting. One thing I would say about this project is it's helped me understand what I have to do more. I'm looking at the environment as an overall piece of art more, rather than just individual boxes that I need to tick. I've realised that my skills in software aren't that good, and as a result my work's been lacking. But as I'm understanding software more and the workflow and what I need to do, as it becomes easier to use, I get more ideas in, and I can use creativity more to come up with a concept and design that. Even if I was to remake this project now, there's lots of things that I would do different. The water does move, which is cool, but in real life, if there was seaweed under the surface of the water, that would be moving with it, and you'd see that swaying in the water. So I'd find a way to animate that and have that with a bit more life in it. I've used the same barrel on the raft to populate the raft with some assets, but I could have thought harder. Maybe adding a little fishing station, some sort of water wheel. There could have been more I added to it to give it more detail. Could have had muck around the planks and holes in the planks seeing through, make it look broken and worn. This project has not only been a learning experience, but has made me realise what I actually need to do for this final project and how to execute it better. I gave it a go this time around, and towards the end of it, I've looked back on it and I've seen things I could do differently, which is really useful before doing something much bigger. For my final project, I want to try an environment again. I'm going to miss out hand-painted textures unless it's on something small. But I'm mainly going to stick to Substance Designer, as that's something I've been focusing on more, and I think I could create stylized art in that to a more professional standard. When it comes to the final project, I want to spend more time on the planning and concept behind the piece, behind the environment, so that I can put more detail in and make it look more interesting. I'm going to spend more time on the block out, getting the areas really refined, and then once I'm happy with that, going back in, dipping into different areas of the environment, making them more complicated, more interesting, would be the next stage. At this point, I'll apply my materials and take a step back again, looking at the overall composition of the environment. That for me has been so far where I end my work. I add a few different bits of detail in, but that's been the checklist over and done with. I realise now that I need to look at it, see which areas need improving, and go into that and improve it again. Bring it another level up, and then take a step back and repeat the process until I need to have my working. This would be just much more of an efficient way of working. It'll allow me to create better work to a higher standard that I can use in my portfolio. Something that I'd be more proud of than what I'm currently creating now. I have already created an environment using the substance design and materials that I've made, and that for me was more enjoyable, which meant I got more into it, which meant I put more energy and time into it, and I created something I was happier with. I've learned a lot from that too, so all of these skills I've gained I can use to focus on a high quality final project next semester. Even though I have lots to say about my piece that mean improvement and getting better, I do have some aspects of it that I really like. For example, the idea behind it, him owning a little pub on a raft in the middle of the sea for fishermen, pirates to come by and have as a station to drink and relax. I like the idea behind it. It just could have been executed better to a higher detail, which is something I'm going to focus more on during my next environment in the final year project. One other positive reflection I have on my work is I think the basics are there. I like the way the kelp in the water becomes lighter as it gets to the top. I deliberately added 3 layers of colour into that. That's something I thought more about at the end. Before, I would have just put one colour in and left it there, but this gives it more depth, more detail. That's something I want to refine more around the rest of my environment to make it look more professional. I think the overall shape is starting to come together. It's the next layers that I need to work on for future.